Greetings, I am Herbert Erpaderp, and today is the day of the asking of the Herbert Erpaderp. And that means there are questions and I probably have answers for them. That's how this works, I think. First, we have a patron voice question from Major General Bunk.
Have you considered breaking up or outright discarding kits you dislike enough to not paint in order to save space, such as your Airfix Sherman Calliope?
I haven't thought to break up my models like that, though I do know the metal and resin Hetzer has had its gun broken off, though that's just because superglue bonds are relatively easy to snap. Not really a bad idea though. I'll have to consider it once I do start running out of space. At the moment, stuff like that gets put in a box, and that does make it a bit easier to store things. They can be stacked and then there's no need to worry about the model being crushed. Also, I don't really have a whole ton of models that fit that description. I think most of what I have is useful in some way, and I do aim to eventually get it all painted. It's not likely to ever happen, but it is nice to have goals. And here's a question from Skylot.
I know you said before you don't like putting tank commanders in your tanks. So, my question for you is, what do you use when you're playing to denote that a unit leader is in a tank?
Good question. It depends. If there's a group of similar tanks that have stowage on them or some other unique markings like a number, I'll use those to identify a leader. Otherwise, I just use a little token or marker. There is always the risk of the token being knocked away or something, but it has worked in the past with no issue. Now, onwards to text-based questions. Martin Gotham said, "What would you do if you had the Force?" I don't know. Force things? I would probably use it to fling slow-moving traffic out of my way when I'm driving, and slow-walking people out of my way when I'm walking. Practical stuff, you know? Ho Chi Meme said, "Would you bring your Discord server people to storm Area 51? Well, I guess. If I were to go myself, why not? But only to watch. If any of you guys want to go running in there, you're on your own." Has the date that's meant to happen passed yet? I have no idea. I wonder if anybody's actually serious about it. I suppose if they were, and it's already happened, it would have been pretty newsworthy and I'd know about it. I would assume. Anyway, SpaceFan247 said, "If you had one wish, what would it be? You can't wish for more wishes." The only sensible thing to wish for is more money than you could ever need. With that you can buy pretty much anything else you might wish for, though I guess depending on where the wish came from, you might have to be careful about how you phrase it. If it's from a genie, aren't they supposed to twist your words around so that your wish comes around to bite you on the arse? If it's just a plain old wish with no shenanigans though, I'd wish for money for sure. Martin Gotham said, "Have you ever seen a Red Arrows display?" Nope, they're British and I don't think they show up in Australia that often. I think they have in the past though, so you never know, but I just don't find myself in places where that sort of thing happens very often at all. Jack647 said, "What do you do with all your completed models? It would be really cool to see you put together some dioramas or displays with all of them." Most of my models are gaming models, so they are, or at least they're supposed to be used for gaming. I don't do a lot of gaming though. They usually get stored in army bags or on shelves. I don't really have space for dioramas, though I am considering putting the Trumpeter UAZ that I recently built on a small base with it doing a jump, like you might see in a game of PUBG, possibly with a figure about to be splattered by it. It'll be small enough that I shouldn't have trouble finding a space for it. Otherwise, dioramas are usually just too big, at least in 1/48th and 1/35th scales. In the future, it might come to a point where I have to sell some of my completed models, but I'm not at that point. Not yet anyway. Armored Jerboa said, "What do you think of the new Sabaton album?" I have finally listened to it. I've been asked this a few times on stream recently. I had been wanting to sit and listen to the album from start to finish and pay attention to it, rather than listen while I'm doing other things. And I really quite like it. I mean, it is Sabaton. Not to say that everything they do is flawless and great, but all the songs on this album are pretty decent. Standouts for me are Devil Dogs, The Red Baron, and Great War. though I had heard those last two before listening to the album. I can definitely see why they would put these out as singles before the rest of the album. They're really good. Of course, there hasn't been enough time for anything to really grow on me yet, but it's a good album and I hope they tour here to support it very soon. Garrus909 said, "Have you ever got into a hobby slump and found it difficult to work on modelling things? If so, how did you get back on track?" Yeah, that happens sometimes. Sometimes worse than other times. I guess I also just get into an everything slump sometimes, for lack of better words. I guess that's depression for you though. I more often get into an editing slump than modelling really, but the solution is usually the same. I just find working on something different and maybe kind of forcing myself a bit to get started is enough to get me back into it. I mean, modelling and making videos are both things that I really love doing, so it's not hard to remind myself of how much I enjoy it. Of course, sometimes the best solution is just to take a break, and you have to figure out yourself which solution is appropriate at the time. I mean, as much as I love modelling and video making, even with the variety of things I do, I can't do it 24 hours a day, or even every day, without it taking a toll and causing burnout. Balance is key in pretty much all things. Also, I've found that looking at all the cool stuff other people are doing motivates me to do my own stuff. SpaceFan247 said, "Do you have plans for your channel in the future, other than more videos?" More videos is pretty much the only plan really. Hopefully more growth, but that's really not something I can plan or make happen deliberately. Maybe I can try being better at self-promotion though. I don't really feel secure enough in YouTube to plan too much. I do have a schedule of videos that I plan to make that I update at the start of each month, and that's about as far as I go. I guess I do have other plans that aren't totally reliant on YouTube, like building up a good community and growing on Twitch. I think those are good plans, but they take time, so I don't have time frames for them or anything like that. That would make it stressful. So the plan is more videos, or an amount of videos that makes sense. Ratto said, "Did you celebrate your 5 years of YouTube career? It was on the 23rd of June this year." I had no idea. YouTube didn't notify me or anything like that. I thought that would be the kind of thing they would notify you about. Or maybe I missed it. That's entirely likely. Maybe next year I'll celebrate 6 years instead, if I remember. It really doesn't feel like it's been 5 years. Well, hooray for 5 years, I guess. Ratto also said, "Is a lot of your videos demonetized? I can't see the ads." They shouldn't be. Everything I can see shows most of my videos as monetized. There are some things I've left unmonetized and a couple of things that have limited ads, like the "fucking stray, you cunt" video about the AC-1 Sentinel in World of Tanks, which makes sense, but everything that should be monetized is. I think though it might be just that you're not being served ads, possibly because of location. I do know that having monetization enabled doesn't mean that everybody gets ads all the time. Of course, it is YouTube, so there could be some kind of soft demonetization going on that they aren't letting me know about. I wouldn't be surprised. YouTube don't really seem to like telling you what's what. Jack647 said, "Do you ever make metal or resin models?" You mean resin? Sorry, I found the typo too funny to ignore. I do try to avoid resin and metal models, mostly because I don't really like working with either material. There are a bunch of videos where I have built metal and resin stuff though. You'll just have to search for them. Sometimes there's just no choice if you want a specific vehicle in a certain scale. Obviously, if there's not enough demand for it, it doesn't make sense to make them in plastic, so it's resin and metal or nothing. I do much prefer working with plastic though, so I will usually try to avoid resin and metal where I can. Trekan Beluvic said, "Garrick or Ducat?" That's a really tough question. They're both great characters. Ducat is one of my favourite Star Trek bad guys. I think I have to choose plain simple Garrick though. I feel like we got to see more of Garrick and he was a bit more developed. They're both so good though. Why do you have to ask such hard questions? The Big Boy said, "What's more derpy, the KV2 or the 2A3 Condensator 2P?" Do we measure derpiness based only on the size of the gun? If so, the condensator wins, if I'm even saying that right. I think the KV2 though. I'm of the thought that a derp gun is one you just fling around, and it's so big and dumb that anything it hits just disappears. Like, derp. Also, I just like the KV2 more. John Tell said, American/Australian muscle cars, or European/Japanese sports cars. None of them sound interesting to me, mostly because I find cars uninteresting to begin with, and they all seem like they'd be really loud cars driven by shitheads that annoyingly drive past when I'm trying to record audio, so I guess the answer is none. Smoes said, do you believe in precognitions and that sort of thing? Not really. Just knowing something is going to happen seems a bit far-fetched, and I'm not aware of any real evidence for it, so I don't think it's really a thing. I mean, if it was provably real, it would be a huge thing. What I do think is a thing, however, is people, possibly subconsciously, seeing evidence that a thing is going to happen, because events don't happen in a vacuum, and when said thing happens, they feel like they knew it was going to happen, and some people just decide that they're special or something. I don't believe the future is predetermined. I don't think anything is absolutely certain until it happens, if that makes sense. It makes sense to me. I can see why some people like to think everything is predetermined though. It means you can tell yourself that you have no control or responsibility, so you don't have to do anything or take any blame for the way things work out. SpaceFan247 said, do you think the A10 looks good or ugly? I think it's kind of ugly. There's a reason it's called a warthog after all, and it's not because warthogs are pretty. That said, it's ugly in a kind of endearing way. It definitely looks interesting at least. SpaceFan also said, why use black primer before chrome? I'm not entirely sure myself, but I believe it's to give the chrome a deeper, darker look. You don't have to prime with black though. You can use white for a lighter, shinier look. I believe also that it should be a gloss colour under the chrome. That said, I almost never work with chrome at all, and I don't really know much about it, so I'm really just making guesses based on things I've heard, and not experience. The Bismarck said, do you think Australia was meant to be found, since it's a magical place? I don't think Australia is a magical place, at all, and I doubt that you would either if you lived here. We just have a bunch of weird and dangerous animals. I don't think that counts as magical. In the comments of last fortnight's Ask a Herbert Erpaderp, Ratto Poika said, I want Herbert Erpaderp on my pizza. Is this okay? This is a response to me saying that you can have anything you want on your pizza. I think I should retract that statement. You can have any kind of food you like on your pizza. Or, you know, dangerous chemicals or anything like that. Herbert Erpaderp isn't a food though, so no, don't put me on pizza. I will, however, accept you giving me pizza to put in the Herbert Erpaderp, unless you've put something terrible on it. Don't put terrible things on your pizza. What I'm trying to get across is, no eating the Herbert Erpaderp. Yantima said, which bolt action starter set would you recommend? I'm not sure bolt action really offers that many starter sets, but I guess it depends on who the recommendation is for. Obviously you aren't going to recommend Band of Brothers to somebody who has their heart set on playing Soviets or Japanese or something. There is Battle for Berlin, but they seem to market that as a battle set rather than a starter set, and it's definitely not priced at a starter set level. I do think Band of Brothers is a good starting point, especially if you have two people who just want to play the game. They could go halves in it, and each gets a small force they can expand upon. Personally, I think buying a box of infantry and maybe a vehicle or two for whichever faction the person is interested in, along with a rulebook and dice etc., could be a good start too. Especially if you can get the small rulebook from somebody that has one they don't need. There are also the army deals they have where you can buy a 1,000-point army. Those do seem to be labelled as starter sets on the website. I suppose in the end it really depends on how serious they are about playing and how much money they want to spend and what faction they want. It's kind of hard to make a recommendation with no additional information, so I would just be inclined to say Band of Brothers because, well, that's the easiest answer. Though it is certainly worth checking to see if there are any sales at the time of purchase too. You might be able to get more stuff for less money. Probably not the best answer, but it is an answer. EP Art said, how likely is there to be a plastic model based on the AC-1 Sentinel tank at the RAAC Tank Museum? A similarly obscure tank, the Soviet T-44, had only 2 plastic models ever produced. In 2016, Mini Art made their 1/35th scale T-44, along with the T-44M variant. Then in 2018, Zvezda made their 1/100th scale T-44. Now imagine the T-44 scenario occurring with the AC-1 Sentinel tank. If Mini Art is the first to make a plastic Sentinel, do you want it to be your first ever Mini Art kit, or would you rather wait for the Zvezda kit later down the line? I think it's pretty unlikely. Also, when I spoke about the AC-1 not being made in plastic, I was specifically referring to wargaming scales, 28mm or 15mm. I think it's possible there is or could be one in 1/35th scale that I'm unaware of. If anybody knows of one, I would definitely be interested. Let me know in the comments below. It is after all an interesting tank. In comparison to the T-44 though, it is much more obscure. It never saw service at all, and I don't think it would have much use for gamers, thus it not being worth making in plastic for the likes of Battlefront or Warlord. To answer the question though, I would probably take the Mini Art one. Presumably if the Zvezda one was a few years away I wouldn't know about it, and thus wouldn't be inclined to wait around for it. I mean, I don't think you can wait around for something that you're unaware is coming. In the end though, I would take both. It wouldn't be my first Mini Art kit though. I do have their fire station that I eventually plan to build, though I have had it for about 5 or 6 years now, so, you know. That's the last question, so let's get into the modelling portion of Ask a Herbert Erpaderp. As per usual, I have omitted a lot of stuff, so if you want to see everything, be sure to head on over to my Discord server and check out the modelling section. There's a link in the description. First up we have this booze golem shared by Sneaky Zaku. What an interesting being? Is a golem alive? I don't know. This one is really entertaining though. And here it is after painting. Very nicely done. I don't know what this model is for, but I like it a lot. Awesome work. Sneaky also shared this very strange looking Gundamy fellow, saying it is the Slap Crab. I think that was meant to be read to the tune of Painkiller. I'm not going to do that though. I might bring down the wrath of Rob Halford upon me. What an odd looking fellow it is though. I quite like it. Space Monkey painted a German soldier who seems to have escaped into the garden to shoot things. He might be helping by killing garden pests. It's hard to tell though. I believe this is an old 1/72nd scale Airfix figure. Good work, keep it up. Ratto shared this Skaven warband for Mordheim, saying they took about 5 to 6 hours to paint. These are pretty cool. I actually gave serious consideration to starting a Skaven army way back in the olden days, but I didn't. I like that there's one in a very bright blue, whatever it is it's wearing. Very nice work. Skeletor completed this BF-109 G6 late. This looks pretty cool, and the camo scheme is rather interesting. I like the distinctly different looking sections of paint. The green around the cockpit, dark wings, and lighter fuselage. Very nicely done. The prop spinner is a decal. I think it would be really hard to paint one of those as neatly as that, so it's good that a decal is included with the kit. Otherwise you might go insane. Good job. Name Redacted shared this Spitfire Mark 1A. This is the 1/72nd scale offering from Airfix, and it was Name Redacted's first time adding rigging to a model. I think it looks really good and you've done a very nice job painting it. It looks like it's been very well used, fighting to keep the skies clear of the Jerrys. Here's the model seen next to a Spitfire Name Redacted built last year. They've been building a Spitfire a year, and so here's a picture of the 2017 build as well. I think this is a really good idea. You've clearly been improving with practice, and it's nice to have visual evidence of that. Painting what is essentially the same thing each year makes that progress even clearer. Very good work. I look forward to seeing the 2020 Spitfire. Corned Beef shared this very nice and clean looking ANA, or is it meant to be said Anna? Anyway, this is a Boeing 777-200, and I think it looks great. I don't know a whole lot about planes, especially not commercial airliners, but it does very much look like one, and it's pretty cool to see something a bit different to the usual planes we get on Discord. Very nice. The big boy has shared this good strong wheelie boy. It's a 1/72nd scale BTR-80, which I think is a pretty interesting looking vehicle, as far as modernish stuff goes, in my opinion. This model is made by Trumpeter and it has been very nicely painted. I really like the reddy coloured mud and dust. It's pretty convincing. Kidachu shared this little, well, I'm not quite sure what it is. It looks like it might be based on a Panzer I, but I'm too lazy to figure it out. What I like is that it has some bling, as the youth of today call it. Nice gold chain, I'm sure Mr. T would be proud. Baustab Monol, not sure if I've said that right. I might just stick with plain old Monol. Anyway, Monol shared this Gvozdika, saying it was an attempt at making something fairly clean for once. I guess it does look relatively clean, though obviously not brand spanking new clean. I like it. It looks like it's been used and well kept. Very nicely done. Also, here's another good strong Russian boy Monol just finished. This is a KV-85 in 1/72nd scale by Trumpeter. It's very good. The paint dripping around the white markings adds a very nice touch. Keep up the excellent work. Fire Fury 13 has shared this glorious thing. This is a combination of Sturmtiger, Stug, Sherman, and Jagdpanzer 4 parts. I think it's really cool. Very unusual of course, but I really like it. What do you call it? You do have a name for it, right? I'm excited to see this once you've painted it. Awesome work. The Vika shared these T-64 BVs. These have explosive reactive armour that the Vika fabricated from styrene tile. I'm not overly familiar with this stuff, but it looks pretty convincing to me, and it's always nice to see conversions and stuff that people do to get the model they want. Very resourceful. The painting on these hasn't been finished yet, but still, they do look pretty good. Keep it up. PKB Chaz shared these very naughty boys who are geared up and ready to go and invade their neighbour. These look really nice. I especially like the half-track. Great work. The Tourette's Gamer shared this little diorama including a flak gun and its crew, a few of whom look like they're lazily leaning up against that half-track. Maybe they should get to work. These are some really nice looking models, and very well painted. I believe this is the artillery boxing of that flak gun, presuming it's the 28mm scale one. I think it looks pretty good. Solo Jones 1985 shared this Typhoon. I'm pretty sure this is a Typhoon. I have got this wrong before. I haven't learned. Anyway, this is a pretty decent model, though the paint is just a little bit thick, and it does look like you've had a bit of a mishap with the decals. I don't like to assume, but I think this might have been caused by rushing, and it could possibly be fixed, unless you've sealed them in. If you apply more decal solution and re-wet them, you could adjust them. Just be careful that you don't break them. Ideally, you would have done this while adding the decals in the first place. My suggestion is to do them one at a time and apply a bit more solution if they become difficult to move. Either way, keep it up. Jack 647 finished his first batch of Shermans, and is pretty happy with them, as he should be. Jack also welcomes constructive criticism, so if you have any, feel free to share it. I think they look pretty decent. You've got a nice smooth finish and the weathering isn't over the top. The only criticism I can think of at the moment is they do look a little bit shiny. I would suggest you keep up the good work and you'll certainly get even better results. And that's it for the modelling this fortnight. It's been a while, so let's check out some of the art shared in the Arts and Crafts channel on Discord. Corned Beef shared this excellent drawing of a panther. They've also included some technical specs, though a notable omission is the rate at which it panths. There's also a shell. Shell for scale? No, we all know that bananas are used for scale. Either way, this is a really nice drawing. And here's another nice one. This time the subject is a tiger, as you can probably tell. This one doesn't have the tech specs, but it's still really good. And one more from Corned Beef. This is an F-110A Spectre. I don't know enough about planes to say how accurate this is or anything like that, but I think it looks great. And I'm sure you'll agree. You have clearly invested some skill points in arting corned beef. No, not farting. I said arting. Duncanuva shared this drawing of a character of his own welcoming someone called Henry to hell. Sucks to be Henry, I guess. This looks like one unfriendly bitey boy. And here's a very sensible picture Duncanuva drew while I was streaming. It features myself making a perfect landing in an F2A Buffalo, ducking tanker in a KV2, Barnaby doing sick jumps in the BT7, and Duncanuva flying upside down in a B5N Kate. Not gonna lie, this is pretty glorious. Uncle Seal shared this Soviet propaganda poster style drawing of a man who seems to be looking at the hammer and sickle very intently. This is really nicely done. Eastern Union shared this fox, which looks to be a very happy fox, though maybe it's a deception and it's actually a bitey fox. Who knows? What I do know is that I really like it. Ho Chi Meme shared this, saying that it was a morning sketch and that the legs could be better. I'm impressed anyway. I'm sure you'll get your leg drawing to a point where you're happy with it soon enough. Stuglife shared this robo-giraffe. I get the feeling it has something to do with Horizon Zero Dawn, though I can't quite put my finger on what makes me think that. Very nice work. Sunny Deezy shared this decorated notebook cover with a helicopter, a shooty stick, and a lion with some sort of stabby stick. Somebody commented that the lion looks like it's about to tell a dirty joke, and I'm inclined to agree. You will have to supply your own joke though. Good work. And that's it for the art. More art in 2 fortnights, unless I forget, or something comes up. Anyway, thank you very much to the good folks who shared their art, and modelling work of course. As usual, there is so much stuff that I do have to omit some of it, because I don't want to make a 6-hour video to share it all, so if you want to see everything, head on over to my Discord and check it out. Also, a big thank you to those who asked questions. It would just be me sitting here twiddling my thumbs if it weren't for you. As always, feel free to ask any questions you would like answered on Ask a Herbert Erpaderp in the comments below, or in the appropriate channel on Discord. And of course, if you are a patron, don't forget that you can submit a question in your own voice. Also, don't forget to subscribe, follow, ring the bell, and all the other things you do on YouTube and social media. Links to all the things, including Patreon and my Twitch channel, are in the description below. You can also find the join button down there. And as always, I shall return soon. So until then, be excellent to each other, and thanks for watching. Farewell.